I believed he merely wished to pay a visit to Grandma. Yet, my grandson caught me off guard with this unexpected question. Have you ever experienced one of those instances when the atmosphere in the room transforms? When a person you've cherished for as long as you can remember, someone who holds a special place in your heart, utters words that shift your perception of them completely. Indeed, that moment remains etched in my memory. The intensity of his gaze as he uttered those words lingers still. Before I unveil all the details, may I inquire where you are tuning in from? In which city or quaint little town do you find yourself as you immerse in my tale? I am eager to discover, for this is one of those stories that weaves bonds between souls transcending distance. It might unfold in any place, perhaps it has already transpired. On a tranquil Tuesday afternoon, everything began. The sunlight filtered gently through the delicate lace curtains of my quaint abode, just beyond the charming streets of Savannah. As I placed a pot of chamomile tea on the stove, the comforting aroma beginning to fill the air, I busied myself folding a neat stack of clean laundry, towels and Matthew's old sweatshirt, a forgotten relic from his last visit, when a sudden knock interrupted the tranquility. Surprise visits are always a twist, aren't they? I certainly wasn't anticipating anyone's arrival. My neighbor, Judy, typically announced her visits with a call beforehand, while the mailman never bothered to knock. As I swung the door open, there stood my grandson, a sheepish grin lighting up his face, a small bouquet of daisies clutched in his hand. In that moment my heart nearly melted. "Mama Meg," he said, the name he'd bestowed upon me in his early years. "I hope I'm not intruding." While I was in town, I decided to drop by for a brief visit. It had been almost 2 months since I last laid eyes on Matthew. At 28, he stands tall and lean, exuding a quiet confidence that evokes memories of his late grandfather. Even as he stands tall in adulthood, a tender warmth lingers in his gaze when it meets mine, a delicate kindness that feels increasingly uncommon among the youth of today. I informed him that he was never to barge in, as I accepted the flowers and guided him through the door. "You're always invited to be here." He entered the living room, casting his familiar gaze around, his eyes settling on the framed family photos that adorned the shelves. He gazed at the image of himself as a 5-year-old perched on my lap at the beach and let out a chuckle. "I doubt I've ever been that diminutive." With a smile, I remarked as I arranged the daisies in a vase. "You certainly were quite the challenge." He chuckled softly before sinking into the well-worn armchair by the fireplace, the very one his grandfather had once occupied. I observed the ease in his stance, the manner in which he let go of tension, as if this was the sole space where he could simply be himself. For the next hour, we engaged in a delightful conversation that meandered through a myriad of topics, both significant and trivial. His position in Charleston, the apartment he called home, and a girl he had been seeing, though uncertainty lingered in his mind about her. And I listened as only a grandmother can, with a heart full of quiet understanding and the occasional knowing glance, free from judgment. At last I brewed a pot of tea for us, and we settled onto the porch, watching as the sky transformed into a tapestry of gold. The day's warmth faded, giving way to the melodic serenade of crickets as dusk settled in. It was a tranquil summer evening, the kind you long to capture and preserve for all time. It was at that moment that everything changed. Matthew faced me, an unusual gravity reflected in his gaze. "Grandma," he murmured, his voice softening, a hint of contemplation in his tone. "May I inquire about something of a personal nature?" I gazed at him for an extended moment, feeling an impending shift in the air, though the nature of it eluded me. "Absolutely, my dear. Feel free to inquire about anything that's on your mind." He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. His fingers danced along the rim of his cup as he cast a fleeting glance at the lawn before returning his gaze to me. "Have you ever experienced the depths of solitude? Is it possible to feel such profound loneliness?" The question resonated within me, clear and sharp, not due to any impropriety, but rather because it was so unfiltered, so candid, and I sensed that this went beyond mere casual inquiry. It emanated from a profound place within him. I took a deep breath, grappling with the elusive words that danced just out of reach. Indeed, I finally uttered, my voice scarcely above a whisper, "More times than I can recall." A lengthy silence enveloped us, imbued with both gravity and a comforting warmth. He nodded slowly, and I noticed a subtle change in his expression, A flicker of understanding or perhaps a hint of permission. He expressed that he had been experiencing that quite a bit recently. I believe that is the reason I arrived here. I sought the company of someone who comprehends that particular silence. I extended my hand and let it gently rest upon his. His fingers radiated warmth, a sense of familiarity enveloping me. I possess a deeper understanding than you might realize. He gazed at our intertwined hands, lingering in the moment without retreating. In that instant the atmosphere transformed. Silence enveloped the moment. Yet transformation unfolded in every corner. An unarticulated connection lingered between us, a gentle presence, neither inappropriate nor distinctly outlined, yet undeniably palpable. And in an instant, the night transformed into something extraordinary. Absolutely not. The following morning, I awoke to the gentle aroma of coffee wafting in from the kitchen. Initially, I believed it to be merely a figment of my imagination. The soothing aroma that had frequently enveloped my home during the days when my husband, Robert, was still by my side. As I slipped into my robe and ventured down the hallway, the familiar sounds of clinking mugs and soft humming assured me of the morning's warmth. Matthew had already risen. He stood at the stove, bare feet touching the cool floor, shirtless, clad only in his pajama bottoms, a hint of a shy smile playing on his lips as he caught sight of me. "Mama Meg," he said, "I hope you don't mind. I recalled how you preferred your coffee, just a touch sweet and adorned with cream. I've uncovered it all." I found myself enveloped in a blend of astonishment and a comforting warmth that had long eluded me. Watching him in my kitchen, effortlessly navigating the space with his back to me and a relaxed posture, stirred an unexpected flutter within me. Not the kind I anticipated from a morning after, but rather the sensation that arises when something is fresh, uncertain, yet somehow profoundly familiar. "You were correct," I replied, attempting to calm my voice as I approached the table. Waking up to the sight of a handsome man preparing coffee for me is an experience I never anticipated having again. He let out a soft laugh, passed me the mug, and took his seat across from me at the small wooden table, a witness to decades of meals, card games, and hushed conversations. The silence that enveloped us felt anything but uncomfortable. It was imbued with a subtle intensity. It was as if we shared an unspoken connection, a feeling that eluded our attempts to articulate it. His gaze sought mine, and as it lingered, I perceived the reverberation of the question from the night before. The profound, silent solitude that lingers beneath the surface. The kind that arises not from solitude, but from the absence of genuine recognition. In that moment I experienced the profound sensation of being truly acknowledged. Initially, we remained silent on the matter. Instead, our conversation turned to my garden. He inquired whether the tomatoes were arriving. I mentioned their struggles this year, and he kindly offered to assist in replanting them if I wished. For reasons I can't quite grasp, a seemingly simple offer brought tears to my eyes, yet it undeniably did. Perhaps it was the gentle quality of his voice that captivated me. As the afternoon wore on, following a leisurely stroll through the backyard and a modest lunch, I meandered into the den, sifting through the pages of old photo albums. He entered and settled next to me on the couch, our shoulders almost brushing, but the proximity of him enveloped the entire space. "You were always smiling in these," he remarked, gesturing toward a faded photograph of me and Robert sprawled on a picnic blanket, my cheeks aglow, my arms wrapped around my husband. "Your happiness was truly evident." I responded softly. We faced our share of challenges, yet he was a good man, loving me in a manner that left no room for doubt about my worth. Matthew's gaze locked onto mine, a fierce intensity that compelled me to cease my restless flipping of the pages. "You are still worthy of that kind of love." Uncertainty clouded my thoughts as I pondered my response. It seemed excessively delicate, uncomfortably intimate. My breath caught in my throat, the air around us heavy and charged with an unspoken tension that felt both new and familiar, as if it had been quietly accumulating all along. I set the album down on the table and rose, craving some space, yet Matthew remained by my side. "Beloved matriarch." "Megan," he murmured, gently grasping my wrist. "My words from last night still hold true. I arrived here, burdened by emotions that elude my understanding, and leave me searching for a way to navigate through them. I've been contemplating life from a new perspective, reflecting on connection, and the true essence of belonging to another. His voice lacked desperation. It was sincere. I ought to have urged him to cease, to steer the dialogue in another direction. Yet I found myself gazing up at him, the gap between us diminishing as we stood in such proximity, and I murmured, "I understand precisely what you mean." He remained still, as did I, yet the atmosphere surrounding us shifted once more, akin to a wave rolling through. "I don't want you to feel alone," he remarked. I swallowed hard. "I wish to clarify things for you." "I'm not," he replied. "Not when it comes to how I feel in your presence." My heart raced within my chest. I had reached the age of 76. I have witnessed a myriad of experiences in life: loss, grief, love, and devotion. Yet, nothing could have equipped me for the silent yearning that now resided in Matthew's gaze. It transcended mere desire. It was a longing for the embrace of someone who understood the depths of your being. In that instant, I realized I was grappling with the very same yearning. Our words fell silent for the remainder of the evening. He prepared dinner as I lingered on the porch, attempting to unravel the emotions that had quietly entwined themselves around me like ivy through a weathered window. As he settled beside me, we dined in quietude, the stars twinkling above, while the cicadas serenaded us in the background. As he prepared to retire for the night, he lingered in the hallway, casting a glance in my direction. "Shall we continue our conversation tomorrow?" "Indeed," I affirmed. "Sweet dreams, Mama Meg." "Sleep well, Matthew." Yet, in the stillness of the night, I found myself lying in bed, gazing at the ceiling, the reverberation of his words playing endlessly in my mind. "You are still worthy of that kind of love." For the first time in decades, I found myself pondering the essence of love at this stage of life, where the body may have aged, yet the heart remains ever receptive. The following day unfolded with an unusual softness, as if the very walls of the house had sensed the deepening quietude that lingered between us. Not the uncomfortable kind, but a delicate sort, akin to a curtain dancing in the wind, poised to be drawn back. Matthew lingered in slumber longer than he typically would. I refrained from interrupting him. Instead, I lingered in the kitchen, my hands engaged in the rhythmic kneading of dough that was unnecessary, merely to distract my mind from the relentless loop of familiar thoughts. What were our words from last night? What words remained unspoken? And perhaps most crucially, what was its significance? As he finally entered, his hands brushing away the remnants of slumber, his voice emerged soft and inviting. A delightful aroma fills the air. "It's merely bread," I remarked, pivoting to meet his gaze. I figured it would be a good idea to occupy my hands. He approached the counter and leaned in next to me, his proximity more intimate than necessary. The warmth emanated from him, and my breath hitched before I could rein it in. He observed. Naturally, he did. Yet he remained silent. Instead, he inquired, "Would you like to take a drive later? Perhaps we could venture down to the lake?" I inclined my head in agreement. That would indeed be delightful. Thus we proceeded. Post-lunch, we assembled a modest picnic basket filled with grapes, cheese, and a bottle of chilled tea, then set off down the winding country road that meandered toward the lake where I once took him fishing in my youth. He remained largely silent throughout the drive. He continued to cast furtive glances in my direction, as if he were still unraveling some elusive mystery. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, we arrived at the lake. The stillness enveloped the scene, punctuated only by the faint calls of distant birds echoing across the water. The golden light shimmered upon the surface as we settled onto a quaint wooden bench at the water's edge. It was the sort of location where whispers found refuge. Following a prolonged silence, he at last found his voice. Once I believed that love adhered to a set of guidelines. I cast him a sidelong glance, intrigued. "Guidelines?" "Indeed," he remarked, as if it were destined to occur among specific individuals, at a particular stage in life, conforming to a distinct form. However, I have come to understand that love is indifferent to such matters. He selected a small stone and cast it into the water. It bounced twice before disappearing beneath the surface. "I'm not saying this to bewilder you," he continued. "It may seem absurd, yet in your presence, I find it hard to see you as anything but a reflection of my grandmother. It seems as though I am gazing upon an individual who comprehends me in a manner that no one else ever could." His words tightened around my heart. I parted my lips, only to seal them once more. I sought to cast it aside. I felt compelled to convey that it was merely a fleeting moment, or perhaps the echo of solitude speaking. Yet I found myself unable to do so, for within the depths of my being, I had sensed it as well. "You've transformed into a man," I murmured gently. "You have perceived me as more than just my former self. That certainly holds significance." Once more we found ourselves enveloped in silence, our shoulders gently touching. "I don't want to cross a line," he murmured, his gaze fixed on the water. Being here with you brings out a sense of authenticity in me that I can't find anywhere else." I glanced in his direction. His expression was candid and sincere, lacking in mere longing, yet imbued with a profound essence. A deep desire for recognition, for intimacy, for the sensation of authenticity. "I never imagined I would hear such words from you," I confessed. Yet, I never imagined that a flicker of emotion would awaken within me once more, particularly at this moment. "Your presence serves as a poignant reminder of my existence, Matthew." I extended my hand towards him softly, and he allowed me to grasp it. "Even when you were small," I whispered, "you always possessed a kind soul." Yet, the emotions coursing through me at this moment are unlike anything I've experienced before, leaving me uncertain about how to navigate this unfamiliar terrain. "We don't have to do anything," he remarked. "I simply wish to be present alongside you in whatever way you permit." We lingered in that moment until the sun sank low, casting a violet hue across the sky. The lake glimmered in gentle shades, and I sensed the shift once more. Not abrupt, not startling, merely constant like the ebbing tide. Upon our return to the house, I ignited several candles in the living room, seeking to dispel the encroaching shadows. He assisted me in crafting a light dinner, and afterward we settled onto the couch, the photo album still laid open from our previous encounter. He remained mostly silent, gently resting his head against my shoulder, and I allowed it to happen. I ought to have known better. Yet, in that instant there was an essence of coming back rather than leaving, from love, from recollection, from existence itself. As he rose to retire for the night, he paused, casting a glance my way, and remarked, "I'm glad I came here." And I replied likewise. Yet, as the house succumbed to silence and solitude enveloped me once more in my room, I found myself seated by the window, gazing into the depths of the night. The emotions swirling within me had transformed into an indescribable force, a blend of beauty and fear that caught me completely off guard. What unfolds when two souls discover solace in each other, despite the world's inability to comprehend? The answer eluded me, yet the question lingered, refusing to fade into the background. The next morning I rose before the dawn broke. The house stood in silence, enveloped in that early stillness that carries an air of reverence. I donned my robe and moved softly down the hallway, stopping briefly at the door of the guest room. I sat in silence, attuned to the gentle, steady breaths emanating from beyond the barrier. A part of me yearned to continue my stride. Another fragment remained. When Matthew finally stirred from his slumber, the kettle was already emitting its urgent whistle. I poured the tea and placed the cups on the table, attempting to calm the tempest that had started to brew within me. In these hushed moments there was a certain sweetness, him here in my home, navigating its spaces as if he were meant to be, as if this was the way things were always destined to unfold. Yet that sweetness was becoming ensnared in a palpable dread. As he entered the kitchen, I noticed a gentleness in his eyes that I hadn't recalled, as if the quiet of the morning had soothed something within him as well. "Morning, Mama Meg," he said, the name now infused with a new kind of warmth. "Good morning, my dear," I replied. We lingered in silence for several moments, merely sipping our tea and inhaling the stillness, until he eventually placed his cup down and met my gaze from across the table. "Last night sleep eluded me." I inclined my head in agreement. "Neither do I." "I was contemplating," he said, his voice measured, "the nature of us, the unfolding dynamics between us. I understand that it's not something we can easily label, yet I refuse to act as if it doesn't exist." I gazed into the depths of my cup. The steam twisted and coiled, evoking a sense of inquiry. "For many years I have found myself longing for what was lost," I said with a measured tone. "Longing for your grandfather, yearning for the warmth of being acknowledged, the gentle caress of connection. I concealed those desires, believing it was the expectation for women of my age. Matthew extended his hand across the table, gently grasping mine. His touch exuded a steady warmth. "You don't need to keep hiding them," he remarked. Tears welled up at the edges of my eyes. I despised the rawness of my emotions, the vulnerability that left me feeling so exposed. Yet amidst that turmoil there was a sense of being cradled, a safety that allowed me to voice the thoughts I had long kept silent. "I never imagined I could feel a connection with anyone again," I murmured. "This is not the way, not in this manner." He clasped my hand with a tender grip. "You are no longer solitary." The day progressed with a measured, intentional cadence. We ventured into the garden. He assisted me in tending to the roses and in replacing the stakes for the tomatoes. Our laughter filled the air far more than our words ever could. He soiled his shirt and feigned disdain, yet I was aware that it didn't truly bother him. The type of labor that connects your hands to the soil transforms you in profound ways. It anchors you. It renders the truth more approachable. After dinner that evening, I slipped into a light cardigan and ventured out onto the porch. The moon loomed low, draping the world in a shimmering cloak of silver. The sound of the door creaking open reached my ears, and moments later, Matthew emerged silently, taking his place beside me. "May I pose a question to you?" he inquired. "Certainly." He gazed into the abyss of night, his hands poised upon the weathered wooden railing. "Were circumstances altered, and I not your grandson, would your feelings remain unchanged?" I hesitated before responding, not due to ignorance, but rather because the truth bore a weight that was difficult to bear. Indeed, I declared at last I would. He faced me, his demeanor unguarded, probing. "I don't believe it's wrong to love someone who loves you in return," he said, "even if the world may never comprehend it." I inclined my head in agreement. Not everything in the world requires comprehension. At times, love unfolds softly, a gentle connection blossoming between two souls who simply discover one another. We lingered in quietude for an extended moment, attuned to the serenade of crickets and the whispering leaves. In that moment, time stood still, free from urgency or expectation, enveloped in a mutual understanding, an intense emotional closeness that had carved out its own niche in existence. Flawed perhaps, yet authentic. In due course we found ourselves on the weathered porch swing, where he tenderly draped an arm around me. My head gently settled upon his shoulder. The air was filled with the sweet aroma of honeysuckle, drifting gently on the breeze. Time seemed to stand still in that moment. The uncertainty of tomorrow looms ahead, shrouded in mystery. I find myself at a loss for words when it comes to naming this connection or articulating its essence. Perhaps we shall not. Yet I am certain of this. Love doesn't always arrive with gentle taps at the door. At times it discovers you amidst the quietude. At times it lingers for years, concealed within the pages of worn photo albums and the shadows of forgotten memories, before re-emerging into the light. At times it arrives at your doorstep, bearing daisies and posing an unexpected question. Yet when it finally comes, the sensation is irrevocable. Perhaps you need not do so.